Hello and welcome to Talking Whiskey. My name is Grant and today we're going to talk about adding ice to whiskey. Now the first thing you need to know about adding ice to whiskey is what ice does to whiskey. Now ice is going to take down the temperature. That's fairly an obvious point, but what happens when you take down the temperature? What happens to the flavour profile? Well, usually when you have temperature extremes, if something's very, very hot or very, very cold, it changes flavours. Now if you have something that's very, very cold, it's going to you could call berry about 60 to 80% of the flavour that you're eating, which is why you can have a really cold beer and it'll taste nice and refreshing, or why you can have a ice cream and suddenly it's not as sweet as it could be if it's all melted and warm. So when you add ice to whiskey, that's what you're doing. You're bringing the temperature down and some of those flavours are going to go away and some of them are going to stay behind. Now, depending on what whiskey you use, depends on what effect could happen from the ice. I personally think that if you add ice to a bourbon, bourbon stands up quite well to ice. It brings out a lot of those good flavours. In fact, on that point, anything that's made with new oak, I think stands out to those temperatures very well. If, for example, you've got a Speyside and you're putting ice in it, personally to me, I think it loses a lot of its flavour. And I think you lose quite a lot on it. But that doesn't mean that that's my opinion's wrong, or that doesn't mean that your opinion's wrong. Everybody's opinion is valid, and whatever way you like to drink whiskey is the way you like to drink it. I'm just saying some of the facts of what happens when you add ice to whiskey. Now, obviously when you add ice to whiskey there's going to be dilution. So this might sound counterintuitive, but when you add ice to whiskey you want to reduce dilution. And to do that, you add more ice. Now that can either be one of these huge big ice balls that you can get molds of that you stick in your freezer, or it can just be loads and loads and loads of ice cubes. As daft as it sounds, the more ice, the less dilution you have. If you have one ice cube and you put it in, it's going to melt a lot quicker than loads of ice cubes or one big ice cube. You could also use the whiskey stones. So you might have seen them, the little stones that you put in your freezer, you put them in your glass and you reduce the temperature of the whiskey, but you don't dilute anything. Now, I've tried them. Personally, I think they do change the flavour a tiny little bit, but that's just me. Let me know what you guys think if you guys use them. You could also get ice cubes that are metal. And again, they're like the stones, you put them in the freezer and you freeze them. Or alternatively, you can get plastic ice cubes that have got the water on the inside. And again, you put them in the freezer, you freeze them. And both those options, again, they give you the temperature effect, but you don't have the dilution. So when you're having ice with whiskey, the only thing is that you just need to know what it's going to do. And it is going to change that flavour profile. For me personally, I don't tend to add ice to whiskey that much. However, saying that, I do quite enjoy a nice summer's day with a bourbon and a couple of nice ice cubes in it. Just great to chill out in the sun. But again, that's just me. Usually I drink it straight. That doesn't mean that that's wrong, that doesn't mean that that's right. But I'm just letting you guys know what happens when you add ice to whiskey. Thank you and cheers.